Hello once again, everybody out there in internet land. This is Jeremy Gledhill with Newdon Technologies. We are continuing our JusticeWeb series today. We've had a couple webinars previously talking about e-discovery, e-view. Today we are going to talk about e-payments, so taking payments through JusticeWeb. JustWare, as many of you already know and are using currently, has a built-in payment system. The way payments work currently in JustWare are that you add obligations to a case. When the person comes in to pay, you can take the money on their name record and take payments through JustWare. And then we have a vouchering or a check system to then pass the money out of JustWare. So someone owes money, someone comes and pays money, and then that money is dispersed appropriately, either to pay restitution or go into different bank accounts as necessary and is divided up. So we are going to talk today from a JusticeWeb standpoint about the different payment options that we currently have. Our JusticeWeb system is consistently changing and growing, so this public payment piece and a few other pieces are pretty new and recent, and they're continuing to add more and more to it. So let's just talk from the very beginning here what the requirements are in order to take payments through JusticeWeb. So first, obviously, you need JusticeWeb as a online access point. You also need a payment provider, and we currently accept two different payment providers, and we are expanding that out as well. So the two that we currently accept are Mercury Payments and Plug and Pay. So Mercury Payments and Plug and Pay, what they do is they act as kind of a bank or intermediary between payments taken on the web and money going into your bank account. So you set up an account with Mercury Payments, for an example, and anytime someone makes a payment online through JusticeWeb, it goes through Mercury Payments, and Mercury Payments then returns a number that then says, to JustWare that this money has been taken. Here's the authorization number so that you can line the transaction up. And I will show you how that shows in JustWare, how the payment comes through, because it does come through just as you would see if the person comes into your office. If they came and handed you a credit card or gave you some cash at a window, it should show in JustWare the same way as if they came online and put in their credit card on their name record. But Mercury Payments or Plug and Pay, they are the in-between go-to for handling payments. The huge benefit to this is that you don't have to worry about security when it comes to the credit card transactions that are happening online. These guys are obviously they're certified. This is what they do in terms of handling payments. So none of this, there is no credit card numbers or anything related to the actual credit card transaction that is stored in JustWare, from this JusticeWeb transaction. So no worries about security that way. Everything gets handled securely through Mercury Payments or through Plug and Pay. So let's just talk about now the different options that we have through JusticeWeb when we're making payments. And there's a couple different options. There's not a lot, but let's go through each of them here. In previous webinars, we've already kind of discussed that there are two sides to JusticeWeb. You have the public side and you have the private side. The public side is obviously the site that everyone sees when they find your website online or through going through a link that you've provided. So this is what's available publicly. Privately requires a login, and you can create logins for whoever you want in terms of people being able to see cases. I know we've demonstrated in the past downloading discovery, e-filing in terms of creating cases or inserting information on cases. So on the private side, we also have a lot of different payment options as well. So let's first talk about the public side, because the public side is actually the most simplistic of the two, and it is currently very locked down. Now when I say locked down, the user has to meet certain criteria in order to be able to pay online. So I created a button here called public payment, and as I've mentioned in the past, all these buttons are very highly configurable. The options, behind them may not be as configurable in terms of, you know, taking payments or doing reports. Obviously, we have a few things here that are locked down, but let's click on public payment here. And we can see I've kind of created just a little mock-up here of what someone might see if they come on your website to make a public payment. So I just typed in some random information. Here's what you need to do. So you could put in, information saying on your ticket or on your document, please locate your court number or whatever number you want to base this search off of. So, find the number. Go ahead, find it. That's what I put in here. And I've actually given two different options for numbers for them to find. I'm going to find mine based off of court number. And you can limit it down. You can say, notice I labeled this court number because originally this was only working for court numbers. You can limit this down or be as verbose as you want it to be to help your users to find their case. So the purpose of this search, and it always starts with the search page from the public side, is trying to find the case. So I'm going to find the bear. I've already got the bear typed in here. Yogi the bear has been our defendant and our test case throughout all these webinars. So we'll find Yogi the bear, and we'll do a search here, and I've got it typed in here as well so I don't forget. His court number should be 777888. So I'm going to hit search. You can see it found a case. Yogi the bear fighting the honey badger. Yogi the bear is the defendant, the court number, and the amount that's due. This helper text down here below, just like the text up above, is configurable. So if for some reason they didn't find the case, or if they found the wrong case, you can give extra helping information. So if they forgot a dash, you could say, remember that the court number needs to have a dash, or whatever problems you seem to find with people finding their cases, we can put in this search here. Another thing to realize, which is a big one, is that this amount that's due is the total amount on the case. That means that, let's say you have a restitution that someone needs to pay and then a court cost that someone needs to pay. And let's say that, as a rule, you don't allow restitution to be paid online, but you allow court costs to be paid online. The way that the public payment is set up is to only allow the full amount to be paid. So let's say in this scenario that we don't allow restitution to be paid online, it actually would not even find their case if they had restitution on their case, because we only want to take the full amount through the public payment. The purpose behind this is that we don't want users getting the impression that this is the total amount that they owe if they find their case online. Another side of this is that these are anonymous payments. So if someone like your grandma knows that you need to pay these fees, they might not know everything that has to do with the case, and they can see the total amount that's due on the case. But it's not going to give any additional information. So $64 is the total amount that Yogi the bear owes, and we can come into JusticeWeb here. We'll find Yogi's case. Let's do a search here for Yogi. And here's his fighting the honey badger case. I'm going to load that up. And then I'm going to go to the financials section. So we've got two different fines and fees in here. So notice we have a fine of $50 and we have a court cost of $14. Let's say, as I was mentioning before, that we don't allow fines to be paid through JusticeWeb. We can actually, nope, that's the wrong administration. Through JusticeWeb administration, set up through our server configuration what obligations we allow. So notice cases available for public payment, what case types are allowed, what case statuses are allowed, what obligation types are allowed to be paid. And then here's the message that I was mentioning before that's configurable if someone does not find a case. So let's change this so court costs are not available. We'll just take that off and hit save. Oops, let me click out of there. Alright, so now if I do a search for Yogi the bear, let's see what we find out here. So we're going to do the bear again. Court number. Search. Here we go. So case is not found. A case with open obligations was not found. Please try again. So actually this message here is configurable, as I've been mentioning before, because you may want to mention in your message, obligations may be on the case, but we don't accept their payment through the public payment. So there are obligations, and we allow, in Yogi the Bear's case, we allow court costs to be paid through the JusticeWeb. But because there's a fine on here, we don't want to give the impression that by paying the $14, everything is paid off. So if I delete the fine and leave the court costs on there, oh, I deleted the wrong one. So I'm going to go ahead and change our system administration here so that it is looking at court costs and not fines. So I'm going to come back in here and say court costs are okay, fines are not okay, since I deleted the other one off. Hit save. So now when we come into JusticeWeb, we search for the bear. Now we can see it finds the case again because the obligations that are allowed to be paid through the public payment system are on the case. So the long and short story is, if they have obligations on the case that you don't allow to be paid through the public payment, they will not be able to find their case if they do a search, because we only show the total amount that's due. If I click on Pay and Submit here, it will take me into a payment screen that gives me the option to enter my card information, expiration date, and notice I'm using Mercury here. So in the bottom left, this is Mercury Payments. So again, I am going through Mercury Payments when I'm typing in my card information. The payment information I'm going to enter in here is test information that Mercury has given me in order to test these payments through our JusticeWeb. So let me try typing in a number here real quick. See if I can get this to go through. We'll say this is Yogi's mama. Sure. The address here we'll say is, they give me this information to type in here, so we'll see if this works. Oh, actually, I'm doing the wrong card number. Let me type in the other card number here. There are a couple different numbers depending on the amounts, so let me try a different one here. Alright, and this is an American Express card apparently, so let's try this one. Yogi's mama, we'll say the address for this one is that. Oops. Alright, so this is the payment information that we've been given by Mercury to test. So let's go ahead and hit submit here. So it's given me a receipt here saying that the payment was successful. You have the option to print this off. And this is what we get back from Mercury Payments. I'm going to hit close here. And we also have a request receipt. So we've talked about these in the past, where you can see what the results of the request were. And these receipts, as we've discussed in times past, are customizable whether or not you want them to show. But it is an option for them to print. They can say, hey, look, this is the receipt I got from JusticeWeb with the basically with the steps I took while I was on JusticeWeb. And click OK. So that was kind of just a quick demonstration of how payments can be taken through the public payment side of JusticeWeb. And those just come through into the name record on the user's name record. And you actually can set up, business rules and things just like you do in your current environment based off of how those payments come through. Again, since this is on the public side, they're considered anonymous payments. So we just go based off of the name that they type in. I mean, you can get the name from Mercury in terms of the payment, the payee, but from a JustWare standpoint, it's not linked to a name record or anything like that in terms of who the payee is. Let's now talk about taking payments from the private side. And I'm going to go ahead and sign in here as Mr. Attorney again. Username of Mr. So we've got now two cases, our sad person case that we created during our e-filing demonstration and our Yogi the Bear case when we were talking about documents. I've kind of simplified our requests so there's not so many requests available for me as a prosecuting attorney. But you can see here, just like we've discussed in the e-discovery portion, and if you haven't seen the e-discovery portion, we go through a lot with document pricing and how you pay for e-discovery. So we won't really go through a lot of that through this demonstration. But just as another side note here, I just made another request where we have $1 attached to our case notes. So if I want to submit a case note, notice it requires me to pay $1. I also added an awesome tax on here, which adds 5 cents based on the percentage. But the thing I really wanted to show you here is this payments button at the top. So besides these request payments, which we did dive in a lot during our e-discovery portion of the webinar a couple weeks ago, this payment screen at the top here gives us a lot of options from a payment side. So let's say, and notice Mr. Attorney doesn't owe anything. Let's say now Mr. Attorney is the defendant on a case. So let's go ahead and go into JusticeWeb. And let's create a new case real quick here with Mr. Attorney as a defendant. And we'll make him fighting the honey badger just like we do with all of our other ones. That's a felony apparently, to fight the honey badger. So I'm going to go ahead and change this now to Mr. Attorney. We'll add a charge. Say that happened yesterday, sure. And then let's go ahead and add a financial obligation to his case here. So we'll say that he owes a fine of $100. Oops. Hit a button here. We want this to go to my agency. And we'll say that's due in a couple days. So I've added a $100 obligation, and as we discussed at the beginning of this webinar, through JusticeWeb, you add obligations to cases. You take payments on name records. So if we go and look at his name record now, we should see that he owes $100. And you'll obviously have a lot more on a case than what I just put on here, but this is enough to show that he owes us $100 on this case. We could even add another obligation if we wanted, just to show through a JusticeWeb standpoint. We'll say that he had court costs, and let's say that they are past due. So let's put in a due date at the beginning of the month. Oops, I forgot to type in germ zone again. Alright, so now we've got two obligations. One is available in the future, one is past due. So now he owes $150. So he could come in, notice it says he's got $50 past due, $100 is the next one that's due. From a JusticeWeb standpoint, Mr. Attorney has a login. He's the defendant on this case, so if we look at his active cases, we can see that he's the defendant, and because he's the defendant, he doesn't have the other options. There's a good chance that your defendants aren't going to have other involvements on cases, but you can see how it kind of segregates the defendant case from the other prosecuting attorney cases. And this payments button up here will show his open obligations that he has to pay. So if Mr. Attorney is a defendant, he owes certain obligations, or Yogi the Bear, let's say Yogi the Bear also has a login, he would see his obligations here that he needs to pay. And notice from this side, on the public side, you can see a lot more information than you could on the private side. Excuse me, on the public side. You can see what obligations you owe. So I have $50 in court costs and I have $100 fine. What the due dates are. It'll show payment history, so Mr. Attorney hasn't made any payments. We can see a lot more, obviously, and it doesn't matter if they pay the full amount or not, which was a big thing with the public side. So if I click on Make Payment here, these buttons that we have available through this payment screen are configurable. So you can force them to pay the whole account balance if you want, or you can make the option of entering an other balance. So let's say they wanted to pay half, they could pay $75 instead of the full amount. Or they could pay the minimum amount due, which is they're past due right now $50, so they could bring their account up to current. These are the different options that we have through the private side that we don't have available through the public side. Another thing with the private side payments is that it does link it to your name record because it knows that you are logged into JusticeWeb. You're the one that's paying this money. It's not Yogi's mama this time. It's actually it's supposed to be you specifically as a person. So these payments will actually come through tied to your name record, whereas the ones in the public side do not tie it to a specific name record for the payee. So let's go ahead and pay the minimum balance. That sounds good to me. It's $50. Same screen comes up here. So let's type in the same number that we typed in last time. Let's see what we get here. Alright, so we'll type in expiration date. And we'll type in Mr. Attorney. Not that it matters. I don't think that the Mercury checks that, but it does check the address on these tests. So let me type that in here. Alright, so hopefully I typed that in right. Let's hit submit. Awesome. So we got another receipt here. This will reflect the payment that was taken. So if they did have a tax, or if you did have a tax on the payment, and I'll show you that in just a second how this is set up on the back end, it would show on this receipt. I also have this one checked to send a email, and I don't think we actually have a Mr. Attorney email address here, but a copy of the receipt can be automatically sent. And then again, I have the request receipt enabled on this as well. So all that can be configurable depending on what you want your workflow to be, what emails you want to be sent out, what information needs to be sent out in those emails, and if you want these request receipts to show after people submit requests. I'm going to click OK on that. If we look at our account summary here, we can see that we have our $50 in court costs, $100 fine, and we have $50 in overpay currently. So the way that this actually processes is it goes into your escrow account, and the business rule that we have created will process the money from escrow and apply it to the appropriate obligations. I don't have that business rule firing right now, so if we come into Mr. Attorney, let's just come in here and look at his financials. We should see money in escrow. Yep. Oh, in overpay, excuse me. I meant overpay, not escrow. So it will actually allocate the money appropriately if you have the business rule set up properly, and I did not set the business rule up. So if we do set up the business rule, it will take the money that comes in through JusticeWeb and apply it to the payments, and that's configurable. So the reasoning for that is you need to configure where you want the money to go allocations wise, based on your allocation rules that you're already using in JustWare. So if you want 50% to go to one or the other, depending on how the money comes through JusticeWeb, you want it to be applied to your allocations appropriately. And of course, I keep using the word configurable. All this is very highly configurable in terms of the workflows that we're looking at here. So I'm going to come back here into JusticeWeb. So we can see here that my payment was processed, my payment history. You can also put in reports, and I know we discussed this a little bit last time. So if you wanted to put in a financials report on a case, and this isn't actually a financials report, I think it's a summary, but you could put in a report available for people to see their financial history on cases. You could put in a report here so they could see their total financial history just as a user instead of for a particular case. So we can make a lot of different information available depending on what you need. Let's talk real quickly here about those fines and fees, and I think we discussed this a little bit in a previous JusticeWeb training. So let's go back to our JusticeWeb administration. We can come to our fee configuration, and this is where you can add additional fees. So I've actually created a couple different fees here. I've got an awesome tax, a convenient fee, and a Mercury Payments fee. So let's say that we wanted to tack on, if Mercury Payments is charging us a fee for the transaction, and if let's say that it happens to be 2%, we can tack that on to to our obligations or to our requests. So for our awesome tax, which I showed just a little bit ago, that's where the awesome tax is coming from if they wanted to submit this case notes request here. We got our 5-cent awesome tax because of those fees that we've set up. And those are all set up through JusticeWeb System Administration. In our e-discovery webinar, we also talked about setting up document pricing rules, so there is that piece as well. So the three pieces you basically work with here are your obligations, your fees, and any document pricing rules that you want to set up. And that basically wraps up our ePayments webinar today. I hope that this kind of gave you a brief introduction on what the capabilities are. I showed you a couple different options that I've set up here. But if you have additional questions, obviously everyone does payments differently. Everyone always has special ways that they handle money or special circumstances in which they will take payments in one way and not take them in other ways. We're always very creative with our workflows, so definitely give us a call, send us an email if you've got any questions, or just stick on if you are on our live chat right now. Feel free to just send us chat messages and we will respond. And we hope that you continue to enjoy these webinars. If you have different suggestions for the future, definitely let us know as well. And we appreciate your attendance. Have a great day.